lesson we're going to learn how to form the comparative and superlative forms of adjectives. And the acronym is OP/COM. I'd like to start this lesson with a short poem. Enjoy. The more you read, the more you know. The more you know, the smarter you grow. The smarter you grow, the stronger your voice when speaking your mind or making your choice. Well, the grammatical construction that reiterates, that occurs again and again throughout this poem, is the more, the more. The comparative the more is used in many newspaper headlines. For example, we have these two ones. The first one reads, "The more we know, the more we can do." And the second headline says, "The more they learn, the more they earn." Let's study some more examples. The more it rains, the more serious the problems become. The more books I read, the more knowledge I get. The more educational games they play, the more they learn. The more violent games teenagers play, the more aggressive they become. We use the comparatives with the more to say that things change at the same time, or that two different quantities are related. The more I study, the more I want to learn. The more is to be followed by a subject and then a verb. For example, the more you read, the more you learn. It can also be followed by an adjective and then a subject and then a verb. For example, the more fluent she is, the more confident she gets. Notice that the phrase after the more is not a normal sentence like she is fluent, where we have subject and then a verb and then an adjective. Now we bring the adjective before the subject and the verb. So the sentence reads, "The more fluent she is, the more confident she gets." Also, the more can be followed by a noun or a noun phrase. And by noun phrase, I mean an adjective and a noun. And then a subject and then a verb. For example, the more money you pay, the more tickets you get. In a normal sentence, you would say, you pay money and you get tickets. But with the more, you use the noun before the subject and the verb. Let's rewrite the following sentences using the more. If it rains more, the problems become more serious. So, the more it rains, the more serious the problems become. If I read more books, I get more knowledge. The more books I read, the more knowledge I get. If there were more shops, we would have more choice. The more shops there were, the more choice we would have. If you play more levels, you will become more skillful. The more levels you play, the more skillful you will become. If games become more realistic, they will be more exciting. The more realistic games become, the more exciting they will be. Now, what if we use short adjectives with the comparatives the more? Well, if it's a short adjective you are using, then use an adjective plus er. For example, the older he gets, the fewer friends he has. The longer I waited, the more furious I got. The smaller computers are, the better. The longer I walk, the farther I get. The faster I work, the more tasks I can finish. Notice that old, long, small, and fast are short adjectives. They are made of just one syllable. And that's why, in the comparative form, we don't say more old. It's grammatically incorrect. So that's why we use the adjective followed by er to make the comparative form. So, That's why the sentence reads, the older he gets, the fewer friends he has. Now what about irregular adjectives? Here is a list of some of the irregular adjectives. For example, good, in the comparative form we say better. Bad, we say worse. Little, in the comparative form, we use the word less. And much, in the comparative form, we use more. Far can become further or farther, depending on whether you're talking about time or space or distance. So, here are a few examples. The first one, the smaller computers are, the more good. But wait a minute, isn't good an irregular adjective? So why in this sentence I use the more good? Instead, I should have said, the smaller computers are, the better. Clear? Good. Let's move on to the next sentence. The more you pay, the better the quality is. The more air I pump, the bigger the size of the balloon gets. Notice the spelling of the comparative form of the adjective big. The less you pay, the better. The more I work, the less time I spend with my family.